I'm Ula.
And I'm Brea.
January is supposed to feel motivating. We're supposed to be like, hit the ground running right now. But for a lot of people, it feels like the opposite. We were kind of joking about this before we started recording, which is like, I disassociated almost for like 2 weeks. And I like came back and I was like, what day is it? What is happening? I had to look at notes I took 2 weeks ago. And it feels like I almost have to rebuild my momentum. Like I'm almost starting not just from like zero, but almost like a negative. So why do you think this time of year actually feels like it's filled with friction for people?
Well, as you're talking in my head, I'm like, who says this? Like, who made this up? Like,
that's a good question.
It is a good, I know. Like,
what?
Where did, like, who's telling us? Like, yeah, the calendar says January, i.e. New Year, i.e. New You. But to me, as always, and if you've been a long time listener of this podcast, what do most of the things come down to but like the systems of the world that we're built on? So this, to me, this is capitalism 101 right here, saying like, because when we're in a culture that's prioritizing productivity as a measure of our worth and self, and when we've been born and raised in these systems, we internalize it and we go, yes, new me, new year, new me, and gonna get the thing done. And that's so rooted in capitalism. That's so rooted in productivity. And if we were back in a time where we were really going with the rhythm and the cycles of the earth and the seasons, I don't think January is the time of productivity, is it? If we're in the Western Hemisphere, we're in a world that's covered in snow. Productivity is at spring. So let's think about this for ourselves for a moment. It leads to that bigger conversation of cycles and why the world is as it is. Like, who said it? Who created the systems that we're living in? Like, these are really important questions because then they can answer and reflect back to us, which was reflect back for your original question, Ula, of, well, here we are at this time of year, blah, blah, blah. Like, why do I feel like I'm struggling to make a resolution that sticks? Why do I feel like I'm struggling to even have momentum? Well, again, peel it back and recognize it's not just you. It's probably not the natural time. So I know for me, when I get the most excited late winter, early spring, because we've just gone through, again, depending where you live in the world, we've gone through a longer period of time of like lying fallow, the fields and our internal fields are mirroring that. We're nestling, it's cold, the days are shorter, right? And then the days start to get longer. And concurrently, our energy starts to build as the sun and the light and the days get longer. That builds at the same time. And then I'm looking at seed catalogs and like dreaming about the spring and summer. And like, it's a natural time, I think, generally speaking, for us to take action. So yeah, I think there's that sort of, let's say, modern impetus of based in capitalism saying new year, because it's also the wellness culture, our $1 billion mother effing wellness culture that is capitalizing on our insecurities and fears that it's also created of, well, you're not good enough as you are, you need to change. And coupled with that, of course, there are things we want to change about ourselves, I'm sure, in a healthy, normal personality thing, right? Like, I don't need to do a 180, but yeah, maybe last year I didn't walk as much as I wanted to, or, I fell into a habit that is not really, that makes me feel good. And I want to change something about that. That's good. This is normal. And it's nice to have that impetus. And so it's kind of a ranging answer, but I think if we tune into cycles, we'll notice that spring is the time to take action. And maybe January is that time you've just potentially celebrated with family, if you celebrate Christmas and on the holidays and all that. Again, I know not everybody gets time off during this time, especially if you work in healthcare and whatnot. It's still dark. January's cold. January's blah. January's short days still. It's like, these are the times to just be quiet and cozy and plan and not necessarily take action. Or if you are somebody who's going like, yay, actually January, what are these people talking about? January is my most momentum. Like, ride that wave as well. But I think the key is tuning in to ourselves and asking ourselves, well, is this me or is this my culture? Is this me or is this 800 Facebook ads when I'm scrolling on social media telling me that I need to change something about myself. Now's the time, because there's also FOMO. There's also fear built around those messaging. It's not just, actually, I'm going to name that. I think FOMO is a big one, because we're like, January, new year, pressure, must make the change now. And then you like scroll and everything around you is saying, change, 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 do the things. And you're like, maybe I need to change. And then you end up making a decision that maybe isn't that relevant or sustainable for you.
The word that keeps coming up now that I'm hearing you talk about this is intuitive and like intrinsic. And a lot of these big changes and programs are often extrinsic. And I think that's like why it might be harder to hold on to that. And I know personally, coming off of, a couple of weeks off, and okay, now we're back into the rhythm of life. I'm back home. And rather than being like, I can't have a cookie, that's not the point. The point is like, I'm trying to be intuitive into like what I actually need right now to feel my best self during a time of the year where my office gets basically zero direct sunlight. And that means I'm eating veggies and I'm, making sure I get my steps in. It's like very intuitive and it feels a lot more gentle, but it doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. And I sympathize, because I can also understand why someone might say that they're just not feeling motivated. But you've watched people try to build practices now for, many years. And when you hear someone say, I'm just not motivated, what do you think is usually like underneath that? Because I think it's not as clear as we'd like it. And it can be a bit of an awkward conversation when someone's like, I just don't have time. And it's like, I 100% believe you. And I think there's something deeper rooted.
Yeah, that's a big one. And so, okay, so caveat, these are all generalities. We're all beautiful, unique individuals who would have a multitude of helpful and reasonable and good reasons as to why motivation doesn't happen. So, let me just try to, so with that in mind, we can all ask ourselves, if we're saying things like that, well, I'm not feeling motivated, or, I just don't have the time. Peeling back the layer and go, well, what is, like, as you mentioned already, like, what is that? Why don't I feel motivated? And are there other things that you're actually motivated to do and are doing currently in your life in relationship to that? Because to me, I'm like, I bet if we were honest about ourselves, especially when we get into, we've all been there, like, I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm too much, too busy. But then I could look at my life and go, actually, I am making more than enough time to do XYZ. But this one thing that I'm saying I don't have time, why am I not making the time? So yeah, it's like, what is that intrinsic? You're right. The difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. What's the thing that's stopping me? And then maybe it's the goal itself. Maybe it's the thing, like, I went through a phase in the last couple of years where I was feeling a lot more introverted, and I didn't feel like hanging out with people quite in the same way. And I felt like I was getting more tired, for example, doing the thing. And I found myself, before I really examined that and what was maybe happening in myself and life, was, I just don't feel like doing it, or, I'm too tired. And if I was really honest, I realized it's like, I just actually don't want to do this. And that's okay. But instead, before I was more honest, it was like, no, I feel tired, or, I'm socialed out, which true. But underneath that was like, I'm actually not feeling social, and that's okay. So maybe the thing we don't have time for is a thing we don't want to do, or our perception about the way that we have to do the thing. Maybe the setup isn't as good, or the way that's feeling right. But maybe the thing, in lieu of some specific concrete example here, but maybe the thing that I'm too tired to do, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the motivation, maybe the container of that needs to change. Maybe it's something as simple as like, I need to get more healthy. My doctor said, you need to start walking more, let's say. And it's like, I'm not motivated to. And that's fair. And that's hard. And if you've been in a pattern of not doing it, it's even harder to just make that change. And that's, I think, the crux of this whole conversation, is that then there's the thing that's good for us, quote, quote, good. I don't have the ability or motivation, but maybe the container is, well, what I'm perceiving is I have to make a 180 change. I have to go from not walking at all to now walking every day. And that could feel like a lot. And then there's that surface thing of like, well, I'm not motivated. I'm too tired. I don't have the time. But when we can turn it into these small steps into, okay, so I went from never walking each day to walking 3 times a week, or walking 10 minutes a day, right? We take these small bites, these little steps. And so it's not that we have to change the intention, but it changed the way that we approach it and how we relate to it. But truly being honest with ourselves, digging a little bit deeper, doing that deeper work of yoga, of self-awareness. Well, why am I resisting this? Where is this resistance coming from? Is that a truth for me? Is that me going, again, in my example of being a little bit more in an introverted phase and actually just being like, hey, it's okay. It's okay if you don't feel social. Boom, bam. And then the minute I gave myself that honesty, the honesty gives me permission. And then I don't have an extra story around it. And then the extra work, and that's where the fatigue and tired comes in, because when we're not honest about our motivations and desires, then we're doing extra work to justify it, if that makes sense. So the mind's working overtime instead of just a simple, I don't want to do this, or the way this is, I think I should do this is like the walking part is too much. That's simple. Truth is clear and simple. But when when we're not connected into that truth for ourselves, then we're doing extra work, and no wonder we're so tired. I was over explaining about why I can't or don't want to go be social, let's say.
Yeah, a couple of things that came up to me or up in my mind was guilt, and back to, the structure of our society, and, me being me raised in the household I was raised in. I know for myself, justification, guilt for taking time for myself. Should I take an hour to go to yoga class, or should I clean the kitchen and get dinner on the stove, and those things? And I'm with a partner that he's like, go to the gym, do whatever you want, and it's like a lifetime of programming to not have to justify me just going for a walk or whatever it is. So it's that programming that has been ingrained so deeply that sometimes I don't even notice it. And I have to, just like you said, catch myself and be like, do I not have time, or am I putting everyone else's needs above my own? Like everyone else's is more urgent and more important, and the thing that I do last is take a break and go for a walk or go down to the gym. You know what I mean? And the other thing, you were talking about our relationship to the healthy habit that we want to get, whatever that is. I know for myself, living where I live, some days it's -30 right now, and walking is really difficult. So we got a walking pad, and I paired it with watching TV, So I walk and I watch TV, and I'm like, it makes me want to walk, right? Or I go down, we have a treadmill in the building, and I put a heavy incline, and that's what I do, right? So I guess I'm like, if someone told me I just have to walk on a treadmill, I would die of boredom. But I paired it with a kind of guilty pleasure, right? Like, ooh, I get to watch TV, or I get to watch that movie that no one else wants to watch because it's awful reviews and all that kind of stuff. So I guess the relationship piece, I quite like that you brought that up. It's like, how are we setting ourselves up just to enjoy the thing? Because the movement pattern or the healthy habit that you're going to actually stick to is the one you enjoy.
Yeah. And I love that you even said like, ooh, I get to make it a guilty habit, or like to watch the quote guilty habit of TV, which is even still, we all have that. Like we all have what we call guilty habits. And even I would love to reframe that for all of us of, well, there's nothing wrong with the guilty habit. Like, what is the guilt? Why do we even say that? There's capitalism. There's these systems of power telling us.
I say guilty because it feels good to do it. It feels naughty, and I like it.
Right? And why does it feel naughty? Why? Where did that come from? Who told us watching crappy TV while walking on a treadmill or whatever is bad, right? Like I can't, it's just, this is how my brain is. It's just, I can never, like, there's always just so much to unpack, because I think these layers and being honest with ourselves about the words and the perceptions and the conditioning that we have is where the freedom lies, where it becomes easier over time to get the stuff that we want to get done. So even examining words like, well, what's my guilty pleasure? And can it just be a pleasure? I enjoy walking on a treadmill, watching trashy TV. So my friends, let me share you one of mine to help like normalize. So I love, so if I've taught a workshop, let's say I'm like a whole weekend workshop where I'm on in it, you know, when I teach, I'm just like, I'm on, I'm in it, I'm loving it. And then I get home, there's nothing more than I love doing after an intense weekend of teaching than watching some trashy TV. And it's like, and I used to have a guilty pleasure because there I was as a yoga teacher, Brea doing her yoga teaching of just like there. I was so present. I was so focused. I was so in it. Like there, I'm like in the approved activity of being a good person in our world, if that makes sense. And then I come home from being that yoga teacher. And then I watch like whatever trashy reality TV or something. And it's like, it feels like a 180. It feels like they're totally different. But it's like, again, as I continue this process of knowing myself and knowing, wow, I just spent a whole bunch of hours very engaged. For me, a way to disengage is to watch something that doesn't require my brain, just like I did that whole day. And however we want to label it, it doesn't matter because I know myself and I give myself permission. So just wanted to kind of pull that little thread of those words.
No, I love it.
Because it's going to happen. It's like, there's like it, whatever helps you get going on the things that you want to get going on and doing. If it's listening to an audiobook, on a long walk, if you're listening to like an amazing audio book that you're like, ooh, cliffhanger, and so you end up walking 2 extra kilometers just to finish that book.
Guilty.
Yeah. Awesome. Right. Like who's telling us we have to be these perfect people and these perfect yoga teachers, these perfect humans, these perfect parents, these perfect blah, 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 blah. Keep unpacking that stuff. And then it becomes internal freedom and ease over time.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I think it digs into kind of, you're saying the deeper practice of yoga. You're talking about like truth, and I actually want to counter you and say that I heard this recently and I'm like, oh, I can't get out of my brain now. Truth is actually expensive.
Ooh, do tell, expand on this.
So we say like truth will like set, you know, like as if truth is easy, but oftentimes we do build these stories. We've been programmed, we've been conditioned, and actually being honest with ourselves takes work. It takes time. And I think sometimes saying that truth is easy is actually not, it's a disservice to us, right? And sometimes the deeper practice is the honesty. It's beginning to learn, where did you get these habits? Why do you have this relationship with this? And it could be really uncomfortable, right? Like
it will
the
be
idea when you're talking like you, and by expensive, it could be, you know, going to therapy. It could be, you know, journaling. It could be meditation. It could be whatever that cost is. I think it'll be different for every person. But, you know, for me, it's like you talking about the, you know, I enjoy saying my guilty pleasures TV because it feels rebellious, because a household I grew up in, like watching TV was not good, right? Like in the sense of we had to sneak into the basement on Saturday morning to watch some cartoons before my parents got up, because in our household, it was like, no, Saturday morning, you get up, you do the chores, you get going, you do your things, and you go outside. Like watching TV was like naughty. Do you know what I mean? So for me to say it's my guilty pleasure, it's like gifting that little girl the pleasure of watching TV, and she knows it feels good to be rebellious and push back against that like guilt trippiness of it. So I think that the idea that truth is easy is in my mind not true.
No, and anybody
it's actually like you have to work.
Oh yeah, bingo, that's it. That's not like nobody's saying truth. Well, I don't know. Yeah, we're not saying truth is easy here, because it's not, because this is the work of the self and uncovering, and also the cost of your own comfort. Because once we start being honest with ourselves, we have to change. We have free will and we can do whatever we want. But like, if you're on this path of growth and expansion and self-understanding, these deeper practices of yoga, you see a pattern and you see a habit that you go, oh, right, there's a cost. Like I've adapted to this habit, and the work is changing it. And now I have to work. Now I have to make that change, and that change is not easy. And that's what I mean with that eventual ticket to freedom of eventually, years later, however long it takes, to engage in this. And that's again why we always come back. I feel like there's a few things we repeat a lot in this podcast, because I think these are conversations about yoga, and this is how yoga has lasted thousands of years and maintained its relevancy, because it's about the self, and it's about the human nature, and it's about the mind. And we really, I'm pausing because it's like, it isn't ever easy. And it would be so much easier if we could just say, Brea and Ula's plan for change for the New Year's, here's 12 things that you can do to make your New Year's better. And here instead we're having this big philosophical, important discussion about the mind and the nature of life and society and the intersections between it all, because it's all of that. And so I think we just keep uncovering these threads of self-awareness in any way that we do that. And Ula, I also just love that example of your childhood, and then that rebelliousness of guilty pleasure, of like, mom and dad, like that conditioning. You're rebelling against the conditioning. And so what are our conditions? And that's a really great place to start. Maybe, okay, so let's put this together a little bit now, if we want action. So now we were talking big picture, and now maybe here's there's still going to be big picture actions, my friends, but some of the actions we could take in January, instead of taking action, in spring when we're ready to do that. But maybe January, in this time of reflection, this time of there's less distractions outside. The outside world's not as exciting, maybe in the winter as it is in the spring and summer. So this time of like, well, what are my conditions? Again, this is what we started with this conversation. Like, what are the things that prevent us from following through on our resolutions? And I think what we're identifying here, let's go deeper. Like, what are some of the conditionings? Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I think I need to do a 180 change? Why do let's say the sugar idea, like you were talking about with sugar and cookies or something, like, okay, so I'm reaching for sugar all the time. Is that something that deeper that I want to look at? Or I'm having that struggle with walking? What's that underlying conditioning? And do it on your own. And as I always love to just reflect back and support and recommend, if you're able to have therapy and have a professional person unpack these questions with you, that's priceless, really, if you can afford it. And hopefully there's other ways that we can get affordable therapy in our world more and more, because that's huge. That's part of that unpacking and this conditioning. And who am I? Why can't I do the thing? Why do I even think I need to do X, Y, Z?
You know what? Another thing is that, like, during January, I feel oftentimes we add more to our plates. And when I'm thinking of, like, back in the day, I think people had these like New Year's resolutions, and a lot of them were to like stop doing things as well. And part of this like exploration process, the example I can think of is, okay, I read a lot, like I'm a bookworm. And sometimes people are like, I don't know how you read that much. And I'm like, oh, game changer was putting a book next to my bed, and in the morning picking up my book when I felt like picking up my phone. I didn't add time. I don't look at my phone and read a book. If I did that, yes, I would like not get to work on time. So when I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed, instead of scrolling, I pick up my book. And I'm not perfect at it, right? So part of me is like also examining the things where, okay, just like letting go, because they're not actually something that adds to our life. Like, I don't feel good when I doom scroll in the morning. Like, I'm okay letting that go. And also it's a dopamine seeking behavior, so it feels extremely uncomfortable to stop it, right? So I think like beginning to explore what ruts we have really worn in, and getting out of that rut can feel really uncomfortable, right? Like maybe the rut is after I eat dinner, I don't know, flop and watch TV, and the habit I want is like walking. We don't think watching TV is bad. We also like TV, but it's an easy example, right? So it's like stopping that behavior actually feels just so difficult. And it's like, yeah, I know. It's actually hard to change.
Straight up. And I think, and maybe that's missing in this discourse, is that like our like worldly discourse of like resolutions and make the change. And is that nobody, or you don't hear the acknowledgement that it's actually super hard. I think you see on social media those like before and after of weight loss things, like, oh, Sarah, like, ooh, look at this person's body and look at them now, which is really a whole other conversation. But like there's like these before, like these progress photos. Nobody talks about how hard that might have been for that person. It's more like, look at my end result. Look at the thing that I did at the end. And I'm not addressing the challenge it was to even get started, the challenge that it was to do in the whole process of it. I think a lot of like the easiest thing to do is to not do something. The easiest thing to do is not make change. It really is. Because the mind is so patterned and conditioned for most of us in so many ways. Because again, getting out of that rut, that habit. And humanity is just a funny place. Like sometimes we really have to hit rock, like, I think of climate change and stuff. We've been talking about it for so long. It's so obvious. And yet here we are still doing things, right? Or like, and so that's the macro in our personal life and our personal worlds. It's like, oh, okay, I know I shouldn't just lie on the couch after dinner and watch TV or whatever. And I need to go do that walk. Because once I do it, I feel really good. But that impetus of doing it is just so, and I don't have a magic bullet of like, this is the thing that you need to do to make it happen. They're just, maybe the easiest thing or most helpful thing is to go, hey, actually, this is hard. This is going to be hard. This is hard, without setting it up as like, oh, this is going to be hard. And then you're making it worse for yourself. There's kind of that little nuance, but maybe it's like, yeah, change is hard, but what's that motivation? Why do I want to change? And just, again, keep unpacking. Honestly, if we had this figured out, you and me, Ula, and anybody else, we'd be millionaires. We'd be billionaires, because this is...
But what's crazy is there are people making money off of this, like selling the snake oil.
Well, that's it.
Right.
That's
and like, and truth is that it's actually complicated because we're humans and we're complicated beings and we have brains designed to protect us. And yeah, it's like catching yourselves in that moment. Going back to the idea of building momentum, I know for me personally, like I have to revisit the lessons of the basics, setting a timer and giving yourself permission to quit. Things like that actually is what helped me get into certain things, like into running, into walking more. Because I feel as humans, the moment we put things onto a pedestal and we create these like rigid rules, it becomes like we fail at something and we don't keep going. And it's like, you are actually allowed to fail and try again, right? So you're on that couch and you're like, I'm supposed to be walking tonight. It didn't work out. And you're like, you're better off being like, I forgive myself. I'm gonna try again, and maybe I'll call my friend and invite her to go for a walk with me because I actually just want to feel social, or whatever it is. It's like that forgiveness factor sometimes. And in a past episode, we talked about like the Heart 75, and it's like this, we act like change is a solo mission at all times, but one of the most powerful things we could do is like not only forgive ourselves, but just like lean into help from the community. And I know for us, upcoming is a small shifts programming within our studio. And I just finished all the worksheets, and I really love what you are having us focus on, which is, again, literally in the name, small shifts. It's like a lot of like inner work, which I really like deeply appreciate.
Yeah, good point. Actually, so anybody who's listening to this in January 2025, anybody after
26,
where are we? Thank you, 2026. Sorry to anybody after that. We are doing a small shifts, like 21-day challenge within Heart Bones Online. And yeah, a big part of it, we're doing a community call where we will be talking as a community about some of these underlying things. So here's me and Ula sort of chatting about it, but we'll be doing this as a community in a little bit more of a structured way, and prompts to think about and a worksheet. And you're also, as you were saying that, Ula, I was actually thinking about a toddler or a baby learning to walk. And I wonder if this metaphor might help some of us. So when we're deciding to make a change, and if we're just like, whatever it might be, a change could be learning something new. Like, again, for me, it's been painting in the last 2 years. the amount of grace and love and care I have to consciously give myself, especially in those early days where it was so easy just to stop and be like, I'm crap, this is garbage, blah, 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 right? And it's like, no. So can we give that? So using the metaphor of a toddler, not even a toddler, a baby learning to walk, those first steps, nobody tells a baby, oh, you fell, you were wobbly, that was a stupid step. Like, just no at all. Hopefully we're not.
We like celebrate it. We get excited.
We are exactly. Look at how happy parents, the adults, the people in that baby's life get when they take those super wobbly, falling multiple times steps, the first rolling over, all these big milestones. And somehow we, as we get older, those celebrations of mistakes and perceptions of failure get completely 180'd in a not healthy way. So using that for ourselves, can we give ourselves the grace that we give a small baby learning to walk? Because that's what some of these changes, I think some of us who want to do bigger changes out of deeper long-term habits of our life, that's what it's going to feel like at the beginning. It's going to feel super wobbly and hard and not good, and similar in the metaphor of that fresh baby learning to walk. And can you give yourself that same grace? Like, oh, there was my wobbly step and I fell down and I cried, right? Metaphorically or actually. And I had a big tantrum and like, right. Like, and nobody was like, oh, don't cry, baby, for learning to walk. It's just, anyways, I think we all get the point now. So I hope that's maybe a fun metaphor to play with.
For teachers and for movement trainers, any modality, where do you think we unintentionally create friction for our students or for our clients?
So recognize these are this is why it always comes back again and again in our conversations. What are the systems of power, the systems that run this world, that have told us and that we've all internalized? And perfectionism is one of those things, one of the symptoms of these systems. Because, so let's use perfectionism as that. So if I've internalized that, and we all have to different degrees, all of us, I don't think there's any of us that are truly immune from any layers of these systems. And that's the first step, to recognize, cool, these are the waters that we were swimming in. Those systems showed up in our life and are growing. So again, that example that Ula, you shared with your family in the morning, right? That was that was your internal family, but that was a reflection of a larger system that your parents grew up in, the world, And so then that shows up in the family unit, and then that shows up into ourselves. And so first of all, yay, recognize that. None of us are immune, and so that's okay. We all have these things. We recognize them, we learn. Because that perfectionism, for example, is going to show up then as a teacher if we haven't really seen it. So we might be teaching in a way that same, maybe our cues have that underlying feeling of perfectionism. The way that we hold space in a class might be unconsciously encouraging people to be perfect and to do the best poses ever. So again, it's not like, this is a long journey of understanding and awareness, but at least just knowing, am I teaching classes? Go back and listen. We have so many other conversations about teaching accessible classes, using inclusive language. So going back to some of those other episodes and getting more concrete details on how to be more inclusive in your classes can help with that, and help not reinforce toxic wellness culture. At least, please.
At least that. I was thinking, I always tell people I respond so much better to a carrot trainer than a stick trainer.
Well, hold on. So what's the carrot and what's the stick?
The stick is like the person who's like, you could do better, push harder, do more. And I know that does work for some people, but I'm the type of person, like, if you tell me, oh my God, try again, you're doing so good, I know you have this in you, I'd be like, yes, I do. Like, I flourish in like that positivity. And if I like you, I'll even push myself harder, kind of. So it's like my people pleaser is like so happy that you're happy. But the reason I brought that up is I've also been in studios where, speaking of like culty-ish and toxic and stuff like that, where you feel, oh, if I'm not here every day, I'm like, I'm falling behind, or I'm not part of the in group. And I think it's like that culture you choose to create within your own teaching, environment. And if you don't see them for a month and they walk into your studio, like, how are you greeting them?
Yeah.
There's like,
And you're even, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Or are you saying, oh, haven't seen you in a while? And I know that seems really extreme, but there's ways of communicating
but that's subtle. No, extreme, but not, and I think because even on the flip side, I remember a lot of times students would come up to me and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I haven't been in class, and like go on a whole explanation to me. And I'm like, I literally don't care. Like, and not in a jerky, yeah, like I'm like, you're here now. Like, it doesn't, like, this is that when we can unpack how these systems show up in us, that's perfectionism again. That's this story and of, oh, I should have been XYZ, but it's like, and also life happens. So again, we keep going back to the sense of, can we give ourselves the ease? Can we give ourselves the grace, the kindness to do? And that's where I think the small shifts, so the kindness to do these small shifts rather than that big 180, the kindness and grace to be, hey, yeah, I didn't get on my mat for 3 weeks because my life was falling apart. Right. But I think some of the old stories are like, well, because your life is falling apart, that's when you need yoga. And like, but how? So doing a down dog? Is that gonna, like, what yoga are we talking about, friends? So anyways,
so any last parting words of wisdom or anything you want to add? Because I feel like I'm personally really excited with what we're doing with the small shifts. It's a type of environment and culture I'm glad we're building as an online studio, and it pushes back against that like 75 hard vibe.
Yeah, well, and again, toxic culture. So I think we're doing our best. We're Heart and Bones is a human run independent business that is full of passionate, normal, real, imperfect people. And that's really the culture that we won't do and have always wanted to cultivate. And so I say that because I was about to say, come and like, if as a yoga teacher, come and try the 21-day challenge to also see this stuff in action, with the caveat, we're doing our best. We really try to bring this into life. We've tried to bring this into the way that we teach. And so if you want to see it in action in a beautifully imperfect way by real people, come and join the 21-day challenge. And the challenge really, even specifically, is do 10 to 15 minute classes. So as a teacher, this is also a nice way to get inspiration for some of your sequences and stuff. I'm always like, steal our sequences. Like, who cares? I don't have a trademark on any of this. And really, it's just the more of us that can be teaching yoga in ways that are anchoring all of this. Because the choice to teach, the choice to do yoga, in my mind, and it harkens back to what we've been talking about this whole conversation. If we're really sincere on this path, it's not going to be easy. It just isn't. Change isn't easy. Growth isn't easy. Self-awareness isn't easy. This is why yoga is still relevant and has ways and tools and space for us to really see ourselves with that clarity and compassion. But it's not overnight, and it's not pretty and fun all the time. So that's where, again, that toxic wellness comes in or goes away when we're, yeah.
It's funny because you're saying like not easy, and I was like, not easy, and you can still do it. And I think that's like, that's the heart of, I think, what we're aiming for, with what we're doing in the coming months. And I'm like, even if you hear this and you miss the small shifts, like, this is ingrained in what we do. Like, a lot of the decisions we've made inside the studio for class lengths, for accessibility to classes, all these things are based on a lot of these like friction points for students that, I don't have time. Great. I have a 10-minute class that you can take. I can't put my knees on the ground. Great. I have a chair class or a knee-free class. Like, there's actually a lot of addressed friction points even within the studio. So I feel like if you're a teacher and you miss the small shifts, like, you're still going to learn a lot. Every month we got a new theme that, we're building all year. So I'm really excited. Ooh, 2026.
Me too. Big changes. Woo, just kidding.
Small changes. Woo.
Small, sustainable. Yeah.
Sweet.
Less is more.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll leave the links. I'll leave links in the description. So if you're curious, you could just, pop over and see what's going on. So Thank you, Brea.
Mm-hmm. And leave comments too, and share and subscribe and do all those things that everybody always says, like, hey, do this on our podcast, but can you do that on our podcast? Thanks.
Your comments actually are read
really
by
helps.
human beings.
Oh my God. And we get excited because it's like, oh, good. We know people are listening to this and appreciating it. So, and we appreciate you, dear listeners. And again, if you ever have, let us know if you have like themes that you'd like to hear on upcoming. So as we go into 2026 too, we're always open to your feedback and suggestions. So leave a comment saying, oh, could you two talk? Could we have this conversation around XYZ around teaching? And pretty high odds we would end up doing what you're suggesting.
Okay, well, thank you, Brea.
Thank you, Ula.